Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. On Apple, recommend Apple Podcasts, and on Android, recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. That's $2.99 per month. We talk about it all the time. Place with most heat information and conversation. Just go to the link there in the description. You'll bypass the Apple upcharge, pay the $2.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. It's football season. Get on there now. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down your 5, get your 50. You can play more or less all across the board, all across the sports spectrum. Again, legal in the state of Florida. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down your 5, get your 50. And now, today's episode.
Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation. We the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket. Open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor. Still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court. Still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball. Or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleepy pads or allowed to morning. The nut is sleeping us. Never catch us snoring. Live from Miami. Report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the courts to the streets. Yeah. Wayne County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Major Passons. You can follow him at Major_Passons. He's also part of our larger 5 Reasons Sports NBA group. And we've been doing State of the Heat episodes. We've also been doing 2006 commemoration episodes, the first championship, and I started a new series. I think Greg's going to take over a little bit of that with Brady on the one thing that every key player on the Heat needs to improve on. But this is an overriding series. This is where the Heat stands in total. We've already had 5 different people on here. We're going to do this the same way we've done these, which is we're going to allow Major to pick a word. The State of the Heat is blank. We're going to discuss that word. And then on the other side of it, I'm going to try to remember the 5 words I've been given already. And Major is going to tell me which of those words most aligns with his. And that's where we're going to go. So let's start here. Major Passons tends to be one of the more optimistic people on the team, although that has not mattered so far because, I don't know, Sean is kind of pegged as being somebody who will take up for the team sometimes too, but his word was more negative, purgatory, than Alex's was, which was satisfactory, and Alex tends to be a little bit more critical at times. Major, the state of the Miami Heat is
mediocre.
Wow, you've surprised me.
I told people I'd surprise them. I told them.
Okay, so how do you define mediocre?
I think it's important to give this a time frame. Like last time I was on, it's kind of ironic because I talked about how they're not in as bad of a shape as most people are saying for the future. But when we're looking at just one season, which is my time frame of thinking about this, it's not going to be anything too great, but it's not going to be anything too negative. It's going to be kind of in the middle. There's going to be good moments. There's going to be moments where you just really want to turn off that game. They're just going to be an average team, though I could see people being more optimistic because if you're average in the East, you're going to look a little bit better than average at times.
Right. Okay. And that's fair. Now, most people would say the mediocre is where you absolutely don't want to be in the NBA. You don't want to be in the middle. It is the worst place to be. The Heat would argue with that because they would say, well, you're just one guy away. You're one player away. You're a couple of internal improvements away from getting out of mediocre. They would rather go from the middle than they would to try to dive all the way down to the bottom. They're not good at tanking. They acknowledge that. They're not even trying to do it. They win games they're not trying to win, even in seasons where they don't win enough games. And so that's what they're going to put this. But mediocre is, again, typically in a league that rewards those who sink to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much maybe as people would have liked with Dallas winning the lottery, but for the most part, it's not where you'd like to be. Why do you think they have become quote unquote mediocre?
I mean, they lost Jimmy. Like, you lost your guy that put you in the playoff conversation, that elevated his game to be the best player on the floor a lot of nights. They don't have that guy. I love Bam. I like Tyler better than most people. Norman Powell, really good addition, right? None of those guys have at least shown so far in their career that they can be like a 1A to win you a multiple playoff series. I could easily see them winning one playoff series depending on who their matchup is, but it's kind of hard to see them making the Eastern Conference Finals. My thinking, and the reason I have this tag of being optimistic, which yes, I am, I generally am, but I always thought no matter what their record is, no matter how they're playing, if you give me Bam and Spo, but then add on someone like Jimmy Butler onto that, they had a chance against anyone. And I agree with the Heat's thinking, and this kind of what I'm saying aligns with that. If you're mediocre, if you can somehow get a Jimmy Butler type guy again without giving up a Bam and even one of Hero or Norm, if you're able to keep one of them, you're back in that conversation. I despise tanking. I've made that very clear on the podcast, on Twitter, and everything. I don't think it works. So I would just want to put out there, I also agree. It's better to win as many games as you possibly can, because I also think it's a mindset and a culture thing. So if they are able to get one of those people,
You said the
I
magic
think they're
word
right
there,
back
the
there.
culture word. We got an alarm bell for a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. I mean, if you can get one of those people, they did get Jimmy for pretty much nothing, like on their 12th try of getting him, and they even got him after the original deal fell through, and they were able to dump the Whiteside contract in doing it. So they've pulled off miracles. The Clippers called them about Norm Powell. They weren't looking for Norm Powell. The Clippers called them, and all of a sudden it was like, what's the catch here? It seems like the catch was that the Clippers really wanted to bring in Beal at half the money, so they kind of knew that was
Crazy.
going to happen, and they able to do it. Right, a great deal for the Heat. I do know, and I've reported that they tried to move Highsmith in that deal initially, and they ended up moving Kevin, which is something they didn't want to do. But again, leadership aside, they moved two non-rotation players that they needed to kind of get out of the way for Jovic's minutes, and they end up bringing in a guy who's a 20-point scorer and should still be. So look, these things can happen. But for the most part, on the bigger scale, they haven't happened lately because free agency has changed. It's not as easy as we saw with Dame as a player saying, I want to go there, and all of a sudden he's going to be traded there. It doesn't always work that
The
way.
one time.
Right. So here would be my question. What would be your confidence level? And then we'll get into the other words on the other side. What would be your confidence level that is actually going to happen? Because we have seen some teams who have been mediocre for a while now. Chicago Bulls have been slightly worse than mediocre, I would say, but playing Atlanta finally looks like they're popping out of there, but it required them. We'll see. I know you're in Georgia. It required them to get the number one overall pick, right? And we'll see where Ricochet ends up being, but Jalen Johnson is kind of taken off, or before he got hurt, and now they've added Porzingis, so it seems like they're stepping out of Toronto. Since winning the championship in 2019 has kind of been mediocre. Masai ended up losing his job for that and other reasons. Like, why are the Heat going to get out of mediocre? Are you just basing it on the fact that this front office has before?
I think that's about the only thing you can base it on. They've repeatedly done this, and they've done it also in ways that fans still don't appreciate. Like getting Lowry, getting that team. They said that team wasn't good enough to compete. They competed. So even in the times where it feels like we don't compete, we still compete. Now, I think each year that goes by that they don't trade like a first round pick or trade assets, they get closer and closer to being able to compete in those situations for specifically like an aging star. So if there's an aging star that ask out that's not in their prime, that's not going to fetch 8 first round picks or whatever that New York has, and that's going to throw it at it. and they say they want to come to Miami. Similar, think of like a Kevin Durant situation, but in 1 to 2 years is more so what I'm thinking. I was never super confident they were getting Kevin Durant. It just felt weird to me. I would have loved it, but it just never felt like they were going to pay that price at this moment when it wouldn't make them that much better.
Well, and part of it was that the pieces that they had were pieces Phoenix didn't want. The Phoenix didn't want the Wiggins contract. They didn't want the Rozier contract. And part of the reason that you are mediocre or turn out to be mediocre is that you make, a couple of bad decisions that put you in a bad spot that you got to work your way out of. And the Rozier trade is the biggest reason for that.
Yeah.
I want to go to the other side of it because there are a couple words that were similar to yours, but I want to get into the distinction as you see it. Okay. So before we do that, I do want to tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And this is where you got to go if you're just out of alignment. Like, is your body feeling mediocre? The Align Training Method by Nanette is offering a free 30-minute virtual movement assessment, completely free. If you've been feeling tight in your hips, stiff in your spine, or your body's just out of alignment, listen up. This isn't some generic workout plan. You also get a personalized breakdown of your posture, hip function, and movement patterns so you can train smarter, avoid injury, and move better overall. It's great for anyone working through pain, coming back from injury, or just looking to reset their body mechanics. Again, go to thevaulttraining.online. That's thevaulttraining.online to book your session. This is where smarter movement begins. Okay, let's get to it now. Let me give you the other words. All right. You tell me how much this aligns and how different it is. Alex said satisfactory. You are not in agreement with that, right?
I think that's a fine word too.
Okay, that's
like
it was referencing the offseason, I think, more so than the state of the franchise, which I think others have understood afterwards. But yes, okay. Brady's word, seeking.
They're seeking another player. Like, they got to have something.
Okay.
So
okay, fair. Let's go with Greg's word, crossroads.
Kind of. I don't think so as much because you put this out in Discord. They're actually kind of leaning pretty young. I think they've kind of made their choice outside of very select players.
Average 25.8 years in the base starting lineup. We did an episode on that too. Not base starting lineup, base rotation. Two oldest players in the rotation, or likely be in the starting lineup, be Powell and Wiggins at 30 and 32. So yes, 25.8. If we're going with the 9 that we think they're going to go with to start the season, and they don't have a whole lot of ways to get older either. So Fontecchio's a little older, Drew Smith's a little older, but beyond that. Okay, the other word. This is Adele's word. Adele's word was growth.
We gotta hope for growth. That's like the best thing to get out of the mediocre situation right now is to hope.
But you're not thinking that growth. That growth. He was speaking, I think, more internally. You're speaking more externally. I guess combination of both, but more externally, right?
To hit their best way this season, their best results, it's not going to come externally. It's going to come internally of very specific players like Ware, Jovic, Jaquez, Terry.
I think a lot of given. I think a lot. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to get the chance. I think a lot of people have given up on Jaquez, but there is a path for him now. There's a path with no Highsmith. There's a path, and I think Larson's the other guy. But I think we're kind of getting a sense for what he is. All right, one more word here. Sean's word, really loaded. Purgatory. Feels like you're with him, right? Kind of.
I wouldn't.
You don't want to be with Sean, right?
Negative.
Okay.
Purgatory for 1 year. I could see purgatory. We're going to be in the mud. Not as much as last year, but we're going to be in the mud. Purgatory though makes me think 4 or 5 years of just no shot at anything, and I just don't see
right. That. Okay. All right. So let's go. So you are choosing of all of the words that you could choose. Which one are you going with? Which is the closest to yours?
Ooh, can you list them again?
Okay, we're going with satisfactory. We've got seeking. I won't even tell you who they were at this point. You know, satisfactory, seeking, growth, crossroads, purgatory.
Oh,
that's where we are, by the way, this offseason. Purgatory, trying to get to October.
Off season's the absolute worst. I will always say that.
Yeah.
But seeking is probably the closest because a lot of ways it relates. They're seeking to improve in multiple ways, seeking another player to make that jump again.
Okay. Well, there you go. Brady, as usual, wins. I'm trying to do something different here, but like boy wonder, it's
Me and
ridiculous.
Brady, every time me and Brady talk about stuff or people say, we have very similar thought process. He's just way more detailed and way smarter than I am.
I'll agree with that. Follow him at major_Passons. Fade him on Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. Fade him on Prize Picks. Get on there, do whatever he's doing, do the opposite, because he is highly mediocre on there. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And again, Brady wins. All right, we'll have more episodes of these coming up. We're gonna get to Eternal eventually. I promise you. That's promise and a threat. Have a good one.